Okay, so I know Hades is that guy and all, but like, the Titans had to be pretty thought if they got beat by one man. Thank you to our $5 patrons, Sinners Lancelot, Artgoon, Praise the Sun, and Strawbones. And a big thank you to our Noise, $69 tier patron, Brian. Now, before we hop into this breakdown on chapter 62 of Record of Ragnarok, please if you ever leave your own thoughts on this chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already. Also, make sure that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early videos, and live reactions. Now, let's get into Chapter 62. What's up, guys? I've got the pencil here, and here we are to read Chapter 62 of Record of Ragnarok, which is known as Elder Brother of the Gods. And, you know, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I think this is the, like, big bro energy. That's how I describe this chapter as, just big bro energy. Oh, that's nice, though. But overall, let's hop right into the chapter itself. We open up and we get to see that we have a question of sorts. And the question is, who is Hades to the other gods? And that's a pretty interesting question to ask. I wonder who's asking it, who's interviewing Ares here. If is there like a is there a god of journalism? I think there's some news god in Percy Jackson. I say Percy Jackson because it's the main reference, right? That's what started me on mythology. But I'm trying to think of my Greek mythology, my Egyptian mythology, my Roman mythology, like all the different knowledge. I can't necessarily remember if there's a god specifically for journalism, but apparently we get to see that Ares is the one who's asked first. Oh, makes sense, you know. He asked the nephew about his uncle, and we see that Ares actually is pretty mellow here, and he is tempted to focus on the idea of his overwhelming battle prowess and like his abilities with that amazing bident of his, because obviously, you know, Hades is a warrior first and foremost to most people. Like, he's a godly warrior, but it's apparent that that's not really the summation of Hades as a whole. And while that may be the first thing that may come to mind with talking of Hades, it's not the only thing, and it's not necessarily his true nature, but essentially Hades is both an amazing warrior and king of the netherworld, but alongside that, he is also the one that the gods would rely on the most. And I wonder, like, the most interesting thing about the unified pantheon idea of Record of Ragnarok is the idea that all of these beings sort of just live together in some sort of faux harmony, right? Like, you see there's some conflicts between them, like Shiva doesn't have absolute respect for Zeus, he had to sort of be put in his place. You see that not all the gods initially agree with each other, like Buddha is very different from the rest of the different deities. Obviously you had Zero being 7 different people, and then turned into some weird other person. Like, there's so many different conflicts that still exist within mythology, but I wonder if this whole title of the god whom other gods rely on the most is present universally. Like, if Shiva has an issue, does he ring up Hades? Like, I really wonder. It's very interesting to think about. And notably, we get to see whoever's asking Ares this doesn't actually know why. Like, that seems such a strange title for the king of the netherworld. Like, for someone who spends most of his time away from the other gods, why does every other god rely on him if he's not even going to spend most of his time in the upper world? And notably, we get to see that this was a title that Hades didn't always have. And I think it's cool, right? Because as long as these deities live and stuff like that, like, they're all implied to be immortal unless immortal till proven otherwise. Nah, but they'll live forever until they end up being slaughtered. We see that perceptions can change, and Ares readily admits that, oh, he wasn't always viewed that way, but we truly became aware of it during the greatest heaven's time of peril, the Gigantomachy. No, I'm kidding. The Gigantomachy. And once again, this sort of brings into question, like, what? I wouldn't even mind a whole Record of Ragnarok prequel. Like, what brought all of them together, and why couldn't they call for help on this, right? Because the Gigantomachy could have probably been soloed if everyone showed up. Like, can you imagine the whole pantheon of all, like the real pantheon, if you really think about it, like all of them showed up? I feel like this wouldn't be much of a problem, but apparently, I guess this is a time when the mythoses were still isolated, and they didn't come together, because we specifically go to Olympus Palace, and we get to see that during this whole tragedy, even, it's weird to say even, because, like, to be fair, Ares got boxed to a standstill by a Herc who freshly awoke to his powers after drinking Zeus's blood. So, notably, Ares kind of fought her, but in actuality, Ares is still a war god, and he got absolutely annihilated by whatever was out there, being the giants. And we see that, unlike the Gigantomachy, which in Zeus's backstory was revealed to be a Zeus-specific event, and not something that was a little bit spontaneous, this was an actual rebellion of creation against its new king from the Gigantomachy. Like, Zeus may have defeated his father Kronos in a fair fight in the Gigantomachy, but after he won complete control over the realm of the Greek gods, that didn't mean his grandma was all too happy about that. And we see that Gaia just wasn't going to let that slide. She wasn't going to let Zeus talk to her like that. And I don't even blame her. But interesting, I'm intrigued with this Gaia design. I wonder if she'll ever show up. Like, notably, this whole thing is just background, and it doesn't necessarily say if Gaia died. It doesn't even, like, there's so many weird things, right? One, it doesn't even mention that Gaia is technically Zeus's grandmother, and also the whole reason that Kronos even existed, and, like, it doesn't mention anything about all the pre-Greek stuff, like, essentially pre-modern Greek pantheon. It doesn't mention any of that. Also, doesn't even mention that the giants were Gaia's spawn, just Gaia's spawn with Tartarus. Like, it doesn't mention that either. But it says it classifies the giants as a separate thing. It calls them the mightiest. It says led her own spawn in the mightiest race in the heavens, the giants, in an all-out war. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not, like, you could argue that by the phrasing, it could mean that the giants are also her spawn. Essentially, the main reason I'm even so wondering about this is because if she shows up in the narrative, could she pull a Hades and replace somebody? Mainly because if you look at the list of Record of Ragnarok fighters, unless I'm mistaken, there are no real primordials on the god side. Like, unless you want to count Odin, but I wouldn't even count Odin as primordial. I'd say that's much more to the person he off, which is Ymir. So, like, in terms of primordials, there aren't many there, and Gaia could be a pretty cool fighter to see, honestly. Especially considering, like, it seems like her face is somewhat hidden. I'm not sure if that weird design thing is supposed to be her face or some sort of mask. I don't know. I'd be very intrigued to see her pop back up again. I don't know. I mean, I really like Gaia, and I may be disappointed about her usage in the Percy Jackson series. So maybe I would want another series I really, really like to use her better. But notably, she is just a background element here. And the battle known as the Gigantomachy began once she led the race against Zeus, mainly because she just didn't like the fact that Zeus won the fight. But I wonder why she didn't just, I mean, maybe she was not allowed to join because she's a primordial. I'm not sure what the role of the primordials is here, right? Because with so little context on this extremely different mythology, I don't even know if Uranus is still alive. Like, is he still there? Or we know Aphrodite exists? Was she born from his balls? Like is that? I'm not sure what's still here. What's canon and not canon anymore? Because Adamas is a fan fiction character. He isn't even supposed to be here. But I don't know. He exists now. This is very interesting. Essentially, I honestly wouldn't even mind if the Record of Ragnarok mangaka or mangakas, I suppose, released an entire backstory. Just give me a whole Greek manga, like, straight up. I'd be super intrigued to see their spin on Greek mythology in full, rather than just getting these little tastes and whiffs of backstory. However, of course, considering that these are some of the most powerful creatures to ever face the gods, this is going to lead to a mighty, hefty, juicy battle, and the Gigantomachy began. And it seems like these giants, just like in the original Greek mythology, were extremely powerful. However, at the same time, traditional demigods don't seem to exist within here. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, this may be a Percy Jackson only thing, but in the canon, this sounds so weird, but in the original Greek mythology, the canon one, if you will, the giants had to be defeated by the help of both demigods, or at least man and giant, right? Like, this wasn't a solo godly effort. Let me double check. Okay, so after doing a quick scan of Wikipedia page, apparently they were not born from Tartarus and Gaia. They were born from the blood of Uranus. But at the same time, Uranus isn't even mentioned here. I don't know. This is very interesting. And we're glancing over a ton of parts. Now, I know the only reason I'm going so deep into this is because I have like some sparse knowledge of Greek mythology in comparison to a lot of the other mythologies on show here, which I don't know much about. However, regardless of that, this is matching because this is the most difficult battle that the Greek gods ever fought, even in original mythology. So even if the context is different, obviously the odds were stacked against the gods. And we get to see that as the battle is raging on in the Tower of Olympus, Zeus asks, what's the status? And we get to see all these people here all lined up around this 6-quarter round war table. And notably, the only person who doesn't have a seat is Hermes. I think Hermes is such a sleeper. I really wonder what his role is going to be in the long run. Because he's so ominous, yet so knowledgeable. If he doesn't end up fighting, I feel like it's going to be a missed opportunity for the series, considering how much buildup he's had in like the most indirect way possible. However, the 6 people at the table are Zeus, Adamas, Poseidon, Hades, Ares. Interesting. I don't know. I mean, he's the god of war, so it makes sense why he's there, but still, I find it hilarious. However, I love how we get to see the personality of all 4 of the brothers here, right? Like, you don't see it at first with Zeus. He seems pretty suppressed, but you get to see Adamas feet up on the table, not caring, angry that he's not in the lead. You get to see Hades, all composed, hands folded nicely over his knee. And then you get to see Poseidon literally, like, eyes down, not caring about the entire situation at all, arms crossed, perfectly indifferent, as Poseidon would be. And we get to see that Hermes, while dressed up as if he were a general of some sort, does not even have a scratch on him, showing how he definitely either he hasn't reached the battlefield yet, or he just big flexing and pretty much untouchable. And we see that he declares that, well, all the troops are putting up a pretty good fight, but it doesn't seem like we're going to win. And Zeus goes quiet. And we get to see that Ares is, as he's getting wrapped up and healed, terrified. Obviously, he's been on the front lines. He's witnessed their strength directly, and he's trying to inform his father, like, yo, I'm not going to lie. They got us beat. Like, they a little bit too crazy. They too crazy. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what great grandma got in there, but she got something different. You know, that blood be hitting different. We get to see Zeus goes a bit silent, like he's almost worried. And then we get to see Adamas talking his smack. He's like, oh my, oh my, oh my. So what are we gonna do now? Almighty chief deity. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Come on now, little boy. Let's hear you talk your talk. Come on now. However, Poseidon and Hades stay quiet. And of course, come on now, it's Zeus. He excited, bro. Like, he straight up goes, well, come on now, big bro. That's gotta be obvious. We got no choice but to beat them up ourselves. And I love it. I love it. Notably, like, every time we got to see young Zeus, we never got to see him truly beefed up like he does when he's older, which made me assume that, oh, maybe whenever he beefs up now, it's just in essence to receive his younger form. But no, even when he was younger, he still had, like, a beefed up super form and then his regular self, which is still just normally buff. And he just stares straight through his clothes. I find it hilarious. I wonder how many clothes he goes through. But we get to see Adamas is like, huh. You know, I don't know what I expected, but I shouldn't have expected better. And we get to see that Zeus is like, well, we aren't going to be the only ones fighting for our lives. Hermes, get the gang. And Hermes is like, hey, you know what? It'd be like that when it be like that sometimes. Let's do it. And notably, we see that Zeus, he's done, right? Like, he sat around long enough. He's about to go out there and get the job done. And he's really excited. I don't know. Zeus is adorable in the most terrifying way possible. He's just a young kid who really wants a good fight. Still, I mean, we don't see his aging process yet. Someone brought up a very good idea that the only reason Zeus aged in comparison to all his brothers is because he specifically fought Kronos, and thusly, like, some aging effect was put on him in comparison to the rest of them who all maintain their, like, youthful appearances. But I'm really wondering that, because he still hasn't aged here yet. And notably, he does say it's been a long time since he's been in a real hardcore fight. And notably, the last hardcore fight we know he was in was with his dad. And if a curse was placed on him, then he should be a little bit older, but he seems to be the exact same. However, we get to see that his arms are crying out for battle, and he just barely fits through the door. And then we get to see that Adamas, he's mad, but he's like, well, he is the chief god, and he would probably whip my behind, so I might as well go out and fight. And then we get to see that Hades is also walking off in a different direction, but it's not the direction that everyone else is going. He's not going straight to battle. And we see that something even worse has happened. Not only are the giants out and about and running amok, about to run up on Olympus, but at the same time, the Titans have freed themselves from Tartarus. Meaning that the last threat that happened, well, not necessarily, this is the weird thing, right? The Gigantomachy isn't so much a threat as it was just a crazy tournament that Zeus himself held. So, I don't know. But the Titans, since they weren't killed in the Gigantomachy due to that, that gives them full reign and freedom to just waltz on out of Tartarus and come on back. Now that obviously Hades isn't there to guard them and the whole world's in chaos. And obviously, unlike before where they would have had to deal with the full might of Zeus again, someone who already supposedly beat the life out of their leader, it makes a little bit more sense that they're more willing to come out now and start tearing through when they have pretty much no one to stop them, considering Zeus is going to be so busy with the giants. Meaning that this sort of pincer attack coming from, ironically enough, it isn't much of a pincer attack unless, like, the only way it could be a pincer is if Tartarus was like a back door to Olympus. But notably, it wouldn't necessarily be a pincer, but it would just be a combination of both sides. Like, both sides would essentially be jumping Olympus, and that would be pretty darn difficult to deal with. And we see that with the Titans breaking out, the ultimate chance was given to them to truly take revenge for their leader, Kronos, and go on the attack. And with that, it seems like the Greek realm was about to be just completely destroyed, right? Because if they're struggling with one group of Gaia's children, they're obviously going to struggle with the other group. And that meant that since there's such a limited time before the Greek realm got invaded, it was a GG. Like, that's it. There's nothing that could be done there. However, Hades, upon hearing this, as his subordinate is all worried, he's like, yeah, whatever. And notably, we said to see Poseidon didn't walk all the way off. He even asked, "Was something the matter?" And all Hades responds with is a casual and simple, "No." And he walks off. And we get to see that he even tells Poseidon, "Pay me no heed, as you pay no one else, baby brother." And it's interesting, right? Like, the chapter already kind of tells you what that means from the earlier mention of Ares. But if the Titans are free and Hades is kind of walking off, that means he's probably going to go do something, right? Because Helheim is his realm. He obviously has to do his job, but he does his job in a very special way, as we go to find out. And we get to see that after being told to pay him no heed, Poseidon does just leap into the battle with his brother against the giants. And notably, the big three, while Hades isn't there, is doing pretty well. Like, Zeus, apparently, I guess it was implied he never used weapons, but it's crazy. He doesn't have lightning bolts and nothing. He's literally just going in and punching things with all the force he can muster. Adamas is wielding a Reaper's Scythe, which is, I know technically, I wish Hades wielded it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know we had a scythe right at the end of the Buddha fight, so maybe that's why the mangaka was so hesitant to give Hades one. But a Biden, it's just another spear. But of course, we had to see the other spear wielder, Poseidon, is doing his best, living his good life, stabbing things. So they're fighting and fighting and fighting. But obviously, with the intervention of the different gods and stuff like that, they managed to win. Obviously, the eldest three gods fighting against the giants would be a massive help in taking them all down. And we get to see that Hermes, once again, I'm assuming he was fighting. He took really no damage. I mean, maybe he was just guarding, but I highly doubt that he had to be fighting. But we see Ares is stumbling out back onto the battlefield trying to be useful. But actually, no, it seems like he was fighting too. But we get to see that Hermes is checking on him, saying like, "Hey, you all right in this bloody battlefield?" And Ares questions if it's over. But Hermes, once again, he doesn't have a drop of blood on him. Like, even Zeus has a little bit of marks of battle on him and stuff like that. But notably, the only people to remain absolutely untouched are Hermes, Poseidon, and seemingly Adamas. So, if that doesn't imply that they're a bit different, I don't know what will. And we get to have Zeus. He's just standing. I really, really, really hope that's Porphyron. I believe that's his name. Is that the name of the king? Like, I know in Percy Jackson, I believe they established like each giant had a counterpart. Porphyron, yeah. So the greatest of the giants, like Zeus is the greatest of the god. I hope that's Porphyron's head he's standing on. But you to see the Gigantomachy is over. And then we cut back to Poseidon, who was wondering, hey, what happened to Hades? And we get to see that the servant that came to Hades earlier starts crying. He's like, Lord Hades wished to stop the invasion of the Titans and went to Helheim alone to stop it. And once again, like the mention of Helheim, and not specifically Tartarus. Well, no, they mentioned Tartarus as simply a part of Helheim. But if the Pantheon was already united at this point, which it being called Helheim implies, where were the rest of the gods? Like, you're telling me, I mean, maybe Zeus didn't want to call in any favors or something, but at this point, I wonder if he really... Was there another tournament to decide, like, who was going to be the Supreme of Supreme, like Zeus is at the start of the series, or not? I'm really wondering about that. But Poseidon's obviously shocked to find that his brother went to Helheim, and even immediately rushes there after him, which I think is... It's nice. I'm glad that even with how, like, mean and rude and crude that Poseidon is on the outside, he still definitely cares for his brother. You can see that by how quickly he rushes after him after he realizes the stupid thing his brother just went and did. However, once we cut to Helheim, we just see absolute destruction and carnage. However, within that destruction and carnage are some musical notes. And all you see is a man, still fully dressed by the way, just casually just singing a song. And Poseidon walks in to this carnage and he sees just everywhere the bodies. And he simply calls out, hey yo, Hades? And Hades is like, oh, how you doing, baby bro? Like, he turns around, like, it is actually insane. Like, with context of the modern fight that's actually happening, like Hades versus Kin, like Hades put more respect on Kin's name than he did the actual time. Like, Hades is fully dressed. Bro didn't even take his waistcoat off. He is vibing. Man is singing with the blood of his enemies coating his... He didn't even take the darn eye patch off. Like, the disrespect is potent here. And we get to see that... Hades doesn't even get, like, he doesn't even say, like, oh yeah, by the way, I did the job. Oh yeah, by the way, all the Titans are dead at my feet. He doesn't say any of that. He's like, oh, Poseidon, I see you. How you doing, baby brother? I suppose you take it, I take it that you guys won the war. Poseidon's just too busy looking around like, oh my, that's Atlas. That's Ipetus. That's every single Titan. Oh my, and we see that Poseidon's like, wait a minute. So you sent all your men to come help us, and you ran off without telling any of us to go fight the Titans by yourself? Dude, that was stupid. And Hades just smiles and is like, well, come on now. I only did what a big brother should do, right? Like, I watched your backs. They were going to come and attack your backs, but they weren't ready for me. They didn't know I was simply that guy. I wouldn't let them talk to me like that. Sorry if you're different. And we get to see that Poseidon, I see post-mortem character development is something that I always, or not necessarily character development, even just character display is something that I wish authors just didn't do. Like, it loses all effect. Well, it doesn't lose all effect. Like, I still like seeing this characterization of our boy Poseidon. But, like, you can see in his interaction with Hades here that he really does care. And to be fair, you can get that out of his original fight, too. But still, like, he was like, yes, however, you could have been defeated. Like, Poseidon is showing care for somebody else, something that you would never think he would do. The actions of Hades actively worried him. They provided threat to Poseidon's thoughts. And that's something that's crazy. You would never think that Poseidon would ever worry about. But, of course, we get to see Hades being like, come on, bro, chill out. I will ever be defeated. That I promise. And I think that's it's really cool. It's amazing. I love the wide shot you get. You get to see that Poseidon is walking up on rubble, and Hades is literally sitting and singing on a fallen column in his own realm with the bodies of his enemies just strewn about. That's amazing. I love that. But we get to see that the main reason Hades promises that he's never going to be defeated is because I'm the elder brother. It is my job to look after and take care of you babies as long as I can. And we get to see he is wielding Desmos, but of course it's missing an implement that would only be added later after the death of the brother behind him. And I love it, because Hades lays back on the column and is like, man, you know, even with that promise, maybe I did be a bit too reckless this time. And we see that in his own way, Poseidon, he expresses gratitude because he reaches his hand out while saying, "You will not hear any thanks from me, brother." And this just shocks Hades. It rocks his world. Because you see, he's like, wow. That's the first time that you've ever called me brother. And of course, Poseidon's actually looking him in the eye. So that's really, he got the ultimate thanks you could ever really get out of Poseidon, which I think is beautiful. I love it. I really, really love their relationship. Too bad we didn't get to see of it before Poseidon died. But of course, we get to see that all the gods are cheering for Hades as he wields Desmos loud and proud with his brother's weapon fused into it. And as they all cheer for the god of the underworld, we get the complete flashback and flashback into the present where we see that Ares is like, of course, he is the one who saved us during the Gigantomachy. Hades, king of the netherworld. He would never ever betray our trust or fail to keep his promise. And I wonder, because like, I guess, I don't know where Zeus heard that. Like, I'll watch over my brother's backs, huh? He, like, Zeus, once again, like, it's that begrudging respect. Like, admittedly, I love Hades. I love Hades even in Ragnarok. Even if I think I want Ken to win, like, I really like Hades here. Because he got the begrudging respect of two beings who would really, really, really not want to give their respect out. Like, both Poseidon and Zeus respect Hades because he's their elder brother and because of all he's done for them. That is amazing. I love that. I think that's amazing to see. And of course, we get to see that he's wondering why. Well, no, not he. Zeus is fine. But Hermes is wondering why he frets over his brother so much. And you get to see, and I feel like Hermes knows, but even Hermes seems to have like a little bit of that in him, considering how much he cares for and looks over his idiot brother Ares. But we get to see that he claims that he doesn't completely understand why Hades would do it. As if, like, worst comes to worst, if it was him or Ares, he would definitely sacrifice Ares. But a certain person wanders on in, and it's like, let me tell you why Hades is goated and he should win this battle. And we see that this is a person, it's Adamas, but Ares is shocked to see him because he thought Adamas was dead. And I guess this is it really makes me wonder, how long ago did Adamas die? Like, it had to be a while ago, right? It had to be, was that pre or post Gigantomachy? I really wonder. It has to be post, but I wonder how long it's been, because apparently Adamas has been alive all this time and just Ares never knew it. But apparently we get to see that despite it being a while since Ares last seen Adamas still has all the authority as one of the elder brothers, because he immediately moves to the side when Adamas walks in. And I love how Zeus is so casual. He's like, "Oh, how you doing, big bro?" And we get to see that Hermes knows that this isn't really Adamas, it's adamantine. Which is, like, I believe it's Greek. Like, it was the original name for diamond in Greek, or it was meant to be like some indestructible metal. And we see that Adamas is like, yeah, you're always the same, Hermes. And then we get to see Ares hide behind Hermes. He's like, wait a minute, who's adamantine? That's Adamas, isn't it? But I thought I thought he got existed. I thought Adamas got hit with that existence erasure from Poseidon. But Ares is told how Hermes was really assigned by Hades to save Adamas's life and go get him. And really, we get to see that The real person who ended up saving Adamas thoroughly was not just Hades, but it was who Hades personally requested to save Adamas, Buggy Boy. See, like, the thing with Record of Ragnarok that I love yet hate is that there's so much interesting stuff just hinted at, hidden. Like, there's so many things, especially on the god side, I will admit. Because the thing is, unlike with the human side, every single time a god is introduced, they're in a fold. Like, these characters have coexisted with each other. Meanwhile, every single time a human is introduced, you kind of have to build them up from scratch. Like, no two humans, unless I'm mistaken, are pretty much, let me double check the list again. Yeah, no two humans are from the same era. So essentially, every time a new human is introduced, you gotta give them backstory, you gotta give them associated characters, you gotta give them a whole bunch of stuff. Meanwhile, the thing with the gods is that since they're all immortal, and that it's been established that they've known each other for a while, you can imply different connections and assert different ties, and we just kind of have to accept them. And they could all be existing characters, and that's super interesting. Like, the fact that Hades has some sort of established relationship with Buggy Boy, that Buggy, he can, well, obviously Buggy Boy seems to be an underworld deity, but the fact that he can just call up Buggy Boy and order him to, or at least, like, pay him to perform a surgery on Adamas to literally save his existence, that's crazy, and it implies that there's some sort of tie there, and that Buggy Boy could have easily denied, but for some reason he didn't. I don't know. I'm very, very intrigued with that whole relationship there. I want to know more about it, but the thing with Record of Ragnarok is, considering it's mainly a fighting manga, we're never going to learn more about it. Unless we get something more in Buggy Boy's fight, but still, I'm very, very intrigued with what could have been and what is there behind the veil, if you will. I really would like a whole prequel manga to Record of Ragnarok, I wouldn't even lie. But, of course, we get to see that Poseidon, apparently, he didn't really want Adamas to die. Like, he just wanted to teach him a lesson. And Hermes straight up says, like, yo, if Poseidon really wanted Adamas dead, there wouldn't be anything of him left. Which is crazy. Like, once again, in his own sick, twisted way, Poseidon is showing his love for his elder brother by not absolutely wiping him from existence. And we see that while Adamas, the 13th god of Olympus, was completely annihilated, in actuality, he's living a happy life as the new god, Adamantine, within the underworld. So essentially, Poseidon did his elder brother a favor, because the main issue that Adamas had with being the 13th god of Olympus is that he was just that. He was the 13th god of Olympus. He wasn't the leader. He didn't have anything to rule over. He was just a dude. Meanwhile, in the underworld, he's given everything he ever desired. A leadership position, fame, fortune, whatever, all of that. It's his own piece of the realm to control, which is nice. Once again, a sick, twisted love from Poseidon, and just straight up outright love from his older brother, Hades. And we get to see that Adamas puts respect on Hades' name. Like, yep, Hades is a total busybody. And Adamas goes on to answer Hermes' question. He's like, well, you're wondering why Hades cares about his brother so much. And then Adamas essentially just steals a line from Adam. He's like, he ain't got no reason. What reason does he need? The only thing Hades truly ever needs is his love for us. His love for his brothers. So Hades does it because what older brother wouldn't fight his heart out for his younger ones? And then, admittedly, it doesn't necessarily hit as hard as Adam. And notably, this still doesn't guarantee Hades' win. Because remember, Adam had that legendary moment which united all of humanity and still lost. So Hades losing is still in the cards. And I'd be perfectly fine with that. But that is a great moment. And it's a true story. Like, I know a lot of older brothers, and while they may be mean, they may be cruel to their younger siblings sometimes, they still do love them. And you can see that in how they care, how they respond to certain threats to them. And I think that's really, really cool that Hades' narrative is the narrative of the brother who loves before all else. And that's neat. That's neat. I like that. However, I do think the overarching tied narrative between the two may end up leading to this love for his brothers being Hades' ultimate downfall. Kin is a person who fights to protect a greater idea and a greater concept. Meanwhile, Hades is very particular, and that difference in them may lead to Kin taking the win in the battle of twin kings. However, This was a really, really good chapter. It was the Hades backstory I'd essentially been fiending and begging for, not necessarily in a way I would have wanted it. I'm not going to lie, the Gigantomachy is a framing device for Hades' brotherly love. I would have greatly preferred just seeing Hades being born and, like, watching his different brothers be born and, like, taking care of all. I guess he doesn't care about his sisters. I'm not sure. The thing is, I'm not sure. Does Hera exist? Does Demeter exist? Does Hestia exist? We never even got a mention of them. We don't know if Zeus is married in this timeline. So I don't really know if they exist, but at least to care for his brothers. I would have loved to see, like, him kind of like really, this is going to sound wild, but you know how we got a whole backstory of young Kin? I would have loved to see a backstory with young Hades. Though I know why it doesn't work, because in effort to make Zeus seem super cool and explain the fist that surpassed time, it kind of had to sacrifice the Gigantomachy, and any young Hades, like, taking care of his brothers within their father's stomach wouldn't really work, because that whole backstory was essentially retconned via Zeus and Poseidon. So I get why this had to be done, but at the same time, which is going to be done a slightly different way. However, I still really, really enjoy the chapter. Please tell me your thoughts on the chapter in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support for as low as $1 a month. Any support would be appreciated. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Zach with the Pencil, writing off.